Hi everyone, I'm sitting in my garden wanting to talk to you about your music experience plan that you need to create. And I thought I would share with you an experience that happened this past week at my house. A group of children from a child care program came to visit, and they were interested in what was growing in my garden. So I'm going to flip the camera and I'm going to show you what they got a chance to see. Alrighty, so this is what my garden looks like right now. All kinds of things growing in here. I will. To me, there we go. There's me again. And I thought I would do a little bit of an observation on what the children were interested in, and then we do some exploration on how I might create some activities or experiences for them, some guided play experiences around music based on the questions and the discussion that happened in my garden. So hopefully this will help you in planning your guided plan for music. Alrighty, we're back in my house, so we're going to talk about what we observed, or what I observed when the children were visiting my garden. So I have, to help me remember what the children did, I have a web to share with you. So I'm going to look here. Do that now. I've written down some ideas, things that I remembered that was going on with the children, and in the center of it all, I've written growth and nature. And that, in my mind, was what they were most interested when they were in my garden and asking me questions. So you can see all the teal or green colored things I wrote. So some of the things we talked about was sun and rain. We talked about how to identify plants. Of course, we talked about eating what grows in my garden. That was a big conversation. We talked about the soil a little bit, about digging in the soil. We talked about how I cared for my plants. And we also talked about the wildlife that shows up in my garden, in my urban garden. So those were the main big subjects that we were talking about. And you're thinking, okay, that's great, Brenda, but how am I supposed to do, or how are you going to come up with a plan for music based on those? Well, we're going to get there right away. So now I'm going to think about what were some of the bigger ideas coming out of those questions. So under sun and rain, they were curious about natural elements, the sun, the rain, the earth, all of those things that are involved in life and around in our community. Regarding plants, we were talking about sorting and classifying. What is a vegetable? What is a fruit? What is edible? Some of my flowers are edible, and the children would naturally think about those as a food source. But yeah, I have flowers that are edible. And then we moved on to eating what you grow, and we had a big conversation about what vegetables people like and what aren't their favorite, what they haven't tried before, what they would be curious about eating. We also talked about soil and soil health and what it physically feels like, and how, the physical work that I put into putting in my garden. Around my garden is a big mulch bed. So that's a lot of lifting and tugging and moving that mulch around. We also talked about sensory, because I'm in River Heights. So the soil can be quite clayey, quite heavy. So then talking about what that feels like compared to other types of soil. We talked about caring for the plants. So empathy and respect for the plants. Responsibility. I can't just put it out there and then leave it, because the weeds will grow and take over. I have a responsibility to those plants. And then finally, talking about wildlife in our urban garden. We have a lot of bunnies in our area, and I was showing the children where I've had a bunny get into my garden. The garden that's in the ground has a big fence around it to keep the bunnies out. This year there's a lot of bunnies. Last year there wasn't, because we had a coyote or two and several foxes that were hanging out in our community, but we haven't seen them this year. So that was a whole part of the conversation. So then, having done all that, now I'm ready to start thinking about music. And under the area of caring for plants, responsibility, I started thinking about planting seeds, and from the very beginning, what is that like? What does that feel like? And possibly one of the things I might offer the children would be some movement experiences, thinking about what does it feel like to actually plant something, having them use their bodies to recreate the movement of a seed bursting open and climbing up through the soil to the sun. What does that feel like? What kind of music might I use with that to have them really get into the thought and the experience of what goes into a seed growing into a plant? Also using instruments to represent different plants, trees, flowers, grass, root vegetables. If they had the opportunity to make music, what might that sound like? Another thing that I started thinking about was the actual digging in the soil, and the physical and the sensory. And thinking about the critters in the soil. Ants, worms, caterpillars, grubs. Are there any possible songs I could incorporate into this experience, this conversation around gardening and soil health? Because soil is soil because of these critters. So I would be able to explore those ideas, and also instill some respect for these little critters and how important they are to our environment. When thinking about eating what we grow and nutrition, again, I'm leaning towards thinking about songs, and that I could invite the children to participate in, like On Top of Spaghetti, and the song I Like to Eat. Could make up some songs about different vegetables or fruit. And then finally, the last idea that popped into my mind was around identifying plants and sorting and classifying. That's a big part of music, is sorting, organizing. Music is very mathematical, very systematic. So thinking about parts of the music and creating different rhythms and sounds to represent different items in the garden. So those are some ideas that I have around how I could share music in relation to that visit the children made to my garden. Now, I have one last experience to share with you in relation to the garden. I've brought into my house a giant leaf from my zucchini plant. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. I haven't done this for a while. But you can actually use produce to make instruments. So this would be something I would definitely share with the children. Now, I'm going to use these scissors, but a small knife would be better. So now, zucchini stalks, the leaves are quite pokey, so I don't want to get poked. So I'm going to scrape off the ones near the end. Now, as you can see, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can. So the zucchini stalk is hollow at that end, but if I cut it up near the leaf, it should be quite a smaller hole at the end. We're going to see if this works. So I can blow through it, but I could turn it into an instrument by making small slits in it and turning it into a flute. See if I can do this. Again, it'll be easier with a knife probably. I'll make 2 holes and see if this works. So that would be something else in regard to music that I would share with the children in connection to the garden and gardening. So you can see how something that might seem completely unrelated to music, walking around a neighborhood garden, actually has elements and ideas for music. Most importantly, I want to challenge you to take your observations and web them, just like I did. So you can see that had I just thought about the children being in my garden, I don't think I would have been able to create a web or create music ideas as efficiently or as thoughtfully as I did. But because I webbed it, because I took I looked for that initial deep idea in the observation, and then I started to expand out to specific things that were going on while they were in the garden, and thinking about what actually was being learned and explored while they were asking those questions. What were the deeper ideas in their questions? I wouldn't have thought of my ideas for ways to share music based on their time they spent in my garden. I hope this is helpful, and if nothing else, stay calm and web. That's my advice for you, is stay calm and web your ideas, and that will help you find that deeper meaning to their play and what's driving the play. Remember, we are not snorkelers, we are deep sea divers. And so you want to go deep into the meaning of their play, not just what you see on the surface. All right, I'm looking forward to reading some of the entries in around your music plan, and I hope this is helpful.